Tonight, after weeks of celebrity appearances, get out the vote appeals, and more than 50 million early votes already cast, and with just 7 days to go until the polls close for good on the 2024 election, all eyes are on Washington, D.C., where Kamala Harris will make her closing argument. Good evening, everyone. We begin the readout tonight live in Washington, where Vice President Harris will very shortly give a major speech, perhaps the most important of her career, billed as her closing argument in the 2024 election, in a very pointed location. I think it's fair to say that no one knows more about closing arguments than Kamala Harris. Remember, before she was the Democratic presidential nominee, before she was vice president and a U.S. senator and California attorney general, she was a prosecutor. It was how she became a rising star in Democratic politics. When you look at her bio, her tenure as a prosecutor is what stands out. It's what she emphasizes when she says her only client in her early career was the people. And thanks to the show Law and Order, we know some things about how the scales of justice balance and teeter in prosecutors' hands. The legal drama, with its iconic opening title and sequence and 20 seasons worth of content, has shown millions of Americans how prosecutors go about making deals and plea bargains, the preparation of witnesses and evidence, and perhaps most dramatically, how they land their closing arguments when representing the people. When you prosecute a case, generally what you do is make your opening argument, lay out the facts, and then you present your evidence at trial. Then in the closing, you explain to the jury how the evidence backs up the narrative you laid out in the opening. It's something VP Harris has done multiple times in her career, including as a presidential candidate. When officially announcing her presidential campaign, she spelled it out like this.
The freedom not just to get by, but get ahead. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom to make decisions about your own body. We choose a future where no child lives in poverty, where we can all afford health care, where no one is above the law.
Now, you can't be a prosecutor without talking about the law, and Harris is making her closing arguments in a very significant place, the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. Now, the last time that you probably even saw the Ellipse was this dark moment in January 2021.
After this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
Trump incited a mob to ransack the Capitol on January 6, 2021. He refers to convicted rioters as hostages. He calls what you see on the screen a day of love. More than 1,500 people have been criminally charged by federal prosecutors in connection with breaching the Capitol that day. Trump also faces federal and state criminal charges for trying to subvert the election. But Kamala Harris is not coming to Washington tonight to relitigate January 6th. She's coming to litigate Trump and his vision for the country versus her own. She's doing it in a way that is historic, significant, and fitting, really. It's a reminder of what happened that day under very different leadership and how we can avoid repeating it, because it won't just be a repeat. The next time will be much, much worse. Joining me now are my colleagues and friends, Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes. Thank you both for being here and coming in a little early, doing a little early duty. Rachel, I want to go to you first. What do you think of the history that's being made tonight, the choice by Vice President Harris to go to the Ellipse to make this speech, and what you expect to hear?
I don't know about what I expect to hear. I mean, we all know there's excerpts around. We've been told by the campaign what to expect in terms of overall themes. We've seen her on the stump doing so many interviews, so many appearances, so many rallies. I mean, we can kind of surmise contextually what she might say tonight, but I do think tonight is different. And I gotta say, Joy, just as a citizen, I'm grateful that she is going to the Ellipse so that a new big political important thing happens on the Ellipse to supplant what our memory is of that place. To have had, as you just showed it, to have had a U.S. president standing there, you know, in that historic place with the backdrop of the White House in front of a crowd, telling them to go physically menace one of the branches of government in order to subvert the Constitution and install him without benefit of the people's consent. That ought to be wiped off the historical timeline. And she could have given this speech tonight from anywhere. She could have done, you know, she could have done this on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. You know, you could pick a lot of places that would have a lot of historical significance. But to do it there is to say, you know what? It was not a proper point in American history to have a president here doing that. We are going to move on and do something different than that. This place will mean something different. We will effectively reconsecrate this ground for the Constitution and for this republic, and I will lead you as a president who respects both of those things. And I don't know if it's going to be a good speech. I don't know if it's going to be a turning point in the campaign, but I'm just grateful as a citizen that a big speech from the ellipse is going to mean something different than the way he left it.
Yeah, and I mean, Chris, reclaiming that ground, I think, is a big reason to be there, right, in this moment, because I still can remember, I can still take myself right back to that day of being on TV with you both, with you guys, and all day folks were on TV talking about the trauma that was produced in that exact same space, right? Because Donald Trump, who was at the time a sitting president of the United States, used that hallowed ground, that ground that was built by enslaved hands, that has represented so much for our country, and he used it to launch the insurrection. The speech he gave from there was, if you don't fight, you're going to lose your country. I'm going to march down to the Capitol with you, and I'll walk with you. And we know now from the January 6th Commission that he wanted to get into the car, into the Beast, and drive over there so that he could be a part of the insurrection and stage the coup in person. Like, that's the memories that I think we now have of the ellipse, which has meant so much more in our history. And she's reclaiming that ground tonight. That seems pretty significant.
I think it is. I hadn't even really thought of those terms until Rachel was just saying it, but it is amazing how much I have a sort of pejorative association with the word the ellipse, because the only time and only context we utter it is as the site for this, essentially the kind of early stages of the insurrection. The other thing I think that is striking here, and this has been true of Kamala Harris as a candidate for the 100 days that she's campaigned as a nominee, is that, you know, one of the challenges in the modern media environment that's so fractured and balkanized is just attention. And this is the thing that Donald Trump has a sort of feral genius for. It's been the thing, his sort of competitive advantage, to be honest. And when the Harris campaign has created these kind of moments of focus, these kind of set pieces, when she was giving her speech at the DNC and when she had the debate, and maybe tonight, when she has been able to sort of create all eyes on her and get focus, she has delivered. She has been an incredibly effective communicator in those situations. Part of the struggle, I think, is in the modern media environment, getting those moments of focus. I think it's a really smart campaign decision to take a big swing here. I mean, we saw, in some ways, a sort of the kind of double-edged sword that is Donald Trump's attentional obsession at MSG, right? Because that got a lot of attention, but it was pretty negative attention, rightly so. I mean, just an insult comic going after everyone from Palestinians to Jewish folks to Puerto Ricans to black people. There was a joke about Travis Kelce wanting to kill Taylor Swift. I mean, I just keep discovering new disgusting things that we're saying. But where she has had the ability in this fractured media environment to focus the attention of the nation, we have seen it in the polling, we've seen it in the reaction, right? That she has really responded to those moments, and people have responded to her abilities to communicate in a really strong way. I mean, in fact, they wanted another debate for exactly that reason. And Donald Trump didn't for exactly that reason. And in some ways, she did the town hall. This is another chance to sort of remind everyone who these two individuals are and what their contrasting visions are.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, she really has, the campaign, Rachel, has done a really good job of competing for that attention economy. She's done these sort of iconic events, obviously being in Houston, hometown of Beyonce, with Beyonce and two-thirds of Destiny's Child, you know, all the celebrities she's brought to the table. That isn't exactly new. I mean, Barack Obama did that, and he did that in a very similar way of using celebrity in a really specific way. But to me, she's doing something in addition to that. I mean, you know, there is a simultaneous, she's going to do an event tomorrow night. There's events going on in Georgia with more celebrities. She's doing celebrity. But at the same time, I covered her 2019 campaign when she launched in 2019. And it's interesting, the themes were the same. She launched as Kamala Harris for the people. Her first ad said she's going to prosecute Donald Trump. She talked about him being lawless and she being the candidate of law and order. And so there's a way in which she's co-opted a lot of themes that are not normally associated with Democrats. And law and order is one of them. She's used that prosecutorial theme again in this campaign, but to incredibly dramatic and successful effect. Like, she really has captured the entertainment and the information economy, as well as, obviously, fought to, weirdly enough, that she would have to fight to even with the polls with somebody whose first job in politics was president of the United States and whose job before that was being on The Apprentice, but such is the world for women, and particularly women of color. But she's done a good job of that, and this feels like an opportunity to do it again.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And I think that what Chris was saying about competing for attention, first of all, Chris has a very, very good book on that exact topic coming out that I highly recommend to everybody. It's great, one of the best things I've read in years. But at this point, in the way it applies to this moment, I feel like it's actually just really illuminating. Like, why is it that Trump can capture so much attention while not doing anything valuable? Well, he captures attention because he's very transgressive and does incredibly offensive stuff all the time, and is sort of wild and feral and out of control, and so therefore you have to pay attention to him. Kamala Harris is a disciplined politician who is proposing a moderate, progressive agenda for the country without doing anything crazy. Nobody ever fears that she's going to bite the head off a bat, right?